Our most important metrics are, as far as buy-to-lets and HMOs, are you spending less than what it's worth at the end? Cash flow and the capital stack are two very different things. We always try and generate value there. We have a minimum threshold of £1,000 net per month, per calendar month income. The reason that is, we've stacked loads of deals is because you can have the best deal in the world with all money out, really high return on equity, really high return on cash left in. If it's only making you like 800 quid a month, it doesn't take a lot for that deal to become less profitable. So it's to quantify a time on that particular deal. So that's a really, really important metric. Kind of ignore a few things on the screen, it's just prompts to look at, but the main metrics that people focus on is yield, net yield, gross yield, return on equity or return on cash, indefinite rate of return, which we actually call ARR, which is annualized rate of return. The reason we rebrand that is because IRR is a very investment markets led phrase which has compounding consequences, and it actually, I think, muddies the water in the real estate space. And I actually think we're basically using a finance term in property which isn't necessarily completely relative. And then return on equity, which is a really big one for us in our HMOs and actually some of our blocks of flats that we've kept in XP. That's a super important one. So I'll sort of go through the strategies and what I think's super important in terms of metrics. So as far as buy-to-lets and HMOs and holding any stock, we want to see a number of things. So one really important figure on the sheet is, are you spending less than what it's worth at the end? Because we've had quite high yielding HMOs that can actually look like an absolute cash cow, but it transpires that you spent significantly a lot of money and maybe even got into a position that if you had to sell it tomorrow, it's not actually worth what you've put into it. So cash flow and the capital stack or the balance sheet are two very different things. So the cash gone in against the revaluation is one important metric. We always try and generate value there. And that actually by default does make the numbers look better, but is an important metric to think about. The next most important metric that we like to see and actually drives all of our strategy around, even at the bidding stage of acquiring the building or acquiring the HMO, is the return on cash left in. So we have a period that the project's delivered, which if it's a HMO, it might be between 6 and 12 months, sometimes even a bit longer, like 15 months. And we aggregate a cash return on the cash during the project. Let's call it 12%. So if it's our own money and we know that that's working during the delivery of that project, once you get to the end and you refinance, the cash stuck in, I believe, is almost the pinch point and the important point, because you want to make sure that whatever cash is stuck in any deal, which could be either in your bank account doing more deals if you sold it, but if your strategy is scale on HMOs and potentially even borrowing money to go into those HMOs, you're making a decent quantifiable margin. So let's just say, for an example, you're going to buy an HMO, someone's lent you money at 10%, you've factored that 10% cost in through the delivery because you're not going to make a profit during the delivery necessarily because it's not cash flowing, you're delivering that particular asset. You then get to the end, and we like to focus on a minimum, if it's internally owned, which means we're doing the management, about 18% return on cash. Therefore, we know that if we've got a structure with that particular investor, or even it's our own cash stuck in the deal, we're making a margin on what the cost of capital or the cost of the investment is costing us. So that key metric is really, really important, because you've got to make sure that you're not getting, let's say you did this whole deal and didn't quite turn out how you planned and you're borrowing at 10%, you don't get all of the capital out or a lot of the capital at all, and that cost of capital is at 10%. If you're not earning in excess of that, you're breaking even on something. So there's a lot of risk and a lot of effort for something that's not necessarily a material gain. Another really important metric, because that's return on cash left in, which might be the SAP that you've had to put in at the beginning, the deposit that you've funded throughout the deal, the cash to get the thing bought, the cash to maybe cash flow some of the build or whatever it may be, is your cash on cash return. But then there's also equity that's been generated in that particular project. So let's say you've got 70 grand left in the deal of the money that you originally put in. That doesn't necessarily mean your equity in that deal is 70K. It might be larger, because if you're on a 70 to 75% loan to value mortgage, technically the equity is 25 to 30% subject to sales costs. I love to learn that metric because we've kept a few blocks in XP property where our return on cash is infinite because we've refinanced every single penny out. But the return on equity, which is the cash stuck in the deal that we could have got our hands on if we sold it, is super low. So you get really excited with these infinite returns, all money out deals, and it all sounds all amazing. But in those particular deals, let's say you got £500,000 stuck in there and it's getting a 5% return. Technically, that's not probably chasing inflation, and that would have probably been better to pull out. So return on equity is a really key one, and we want a minimum of 10% on that return on equity, as well as the 18% hurdle of return on cash, as well as we've hopefully generated some value for all costs in versus refinance. Obviously, a lot of these impact each other, because if you have spent loads on something and you don't necessarily get all your cash out, or a lot of your cash, or the majority of it out, your cash left in is higher. So the ratio for that return on cash left in has to be a more successful cash flow deal to then counterbalance that poor balance sheet position to a cash flow position. Last but not least, on buy-to-lets and HMOs.
If you want to work on developments just like this is £6 million in North London, and you want to be surrounded by other property developers that are doing this as a job, you want to scale and grow your development business, you need to surround yourself with business owners that have been there and done that. We've spent tens of thousands of pounds on our own education with business coaching, mentorship, and that's why we're bringing the XP Boardroom to people just like yourself, who want to learn from award-winning developers just like us, doing large developments like this, 10, 20, 30 million pounds of gross development value every year. If you want to be part of that group, there'll be a link down below to learn more about it, where you can get deals funded, deal clinic, hot seat coaching, goals and achievements that we hold you accountable to. Click on the link below. We'd love to have you on board. The new cohort of our XP Boardroom has just opened.
We have a minimum threshold of £1,000 net per month, per calendar month income. The reason that is, we've stacked loads of deals, and we've actually done a deal fairly recently actually, where our net income is about 800 quid. And the reason that we've kind of got this rule of thumb that we really want about a K a month net is because you can have the best deal in the world with all money out, really high return on equity, really high return on cash left in, if there is any left in. But if it's only making you like 800 quid a month, it doesn't take a lot for that deal to become less profitable. I.e., for an example, let's say that particular deal actually is a mixed use building, it's part shared cost to the freeholds. Let's say your roof needs replacing and it's not something that could be expensed on the insurance. That costs you £8,000. That's all of our margin in 1 year. So it's a quantum to warrant our time, because we could do 1,000 of those 800 quid a month net, and the amount of time allocation to that deal is exactly the same to other deals where we've got £3,000 net in one HMO. So it's to quantify a time on that particular deal. So that's a really, really important metric for us. So all of those have to check out for us to do the deal. Sounds really complicated because I've talked it through, but our spreadsheet does most of this talking for us and is aggregated to automated feeders to tell us, yeah, that checks out, that checks out, that checks out, let's do the deal. Obviously, you can make concessions on one or two of those maybe, but you have to understand those risk of concessions that you're making. I always say it's okay to take a risk as long as you understand the parameters of that risk. You know, all the time people just go, yeah, looks like a great deal, all money out. But if you're making 400 quid a month and then you hit a problem, I don't think that's a great concession to make on that particular deal. So there's certain parameters that make deals easier to make those concessions. So there are important metrics. We don't bring in IRR into HMOs really. It's an annualized income-based product, so it already tells us that. We don't factor in capital appreciation in our HMOs. In our portfolio builder, we have just to see what it looks like over a longer-term program, and they're the most important metrics on HMOs, buy-to-lets, and holding stock. Now on to like commercial conversions and developments. I would say our most important metrics are, so typically to get debt funding, you need to be averaging around 20% return on GDV before finance costs. That typically nets down to about 16, 17% after finance costs. That's the threshold to unlock the funding. What we like to see as a business is we like to see about £200,000 net of our share per annum into our business. Now, the reason is that it's the same metric that I just talked about in HMOs. Our business costs a certain amount to do projects, and we have to have a minimum threshold to do those particular projects. So our business costs, let's say, for an example, if you're a one-man band or a 10-man band, we're the 10-man band. The 10-man band costs 400 grand a year to run. The one-man band costs 80 grand a year to run. That one-man band can look at all of the other percentages on a capital stack, but the quantum will have to be basically a third or a fourth for them to realize the same personally as an ultimate beneficiary ownership. We are a slightly larger outfit, so we have to have the multiplier that quantifies that our team are doing the deals that are big enough to pay for them and make a margin. That's how we build a sustainable development company. So that's another metric that we look at. So a minimum return for our business, and that's retrospectively. So let's say we're doing a JV with an investor, it's going to take 3 years. Over those 3 years, if we're soon to make 600k net, that hits our threshold of 200k per annum in theory. So you never know, obviously, how deals end out, but that's the theory of basis that we like to look at. And last but not least, for us, we like to stress test all of our developments. So we look at the scenario if the gross development value drops 10%. We look at the scenario if the contingency that's at 10% increases to 25%, the impact that that has on the project. And then last but not least, we look at if the program of the project overruns by 12 months. We then have it in a table so we can see reality A, reality B, reality C as a standalone impact to see what the profit margins and the headroom is in that project. And then we also aggregate all three things happening all together, which is like doomsday scenario for us. We've really messed up in a number of ways, or we're reliant on third parties, or contractor went bust, or the market's tanked, so the GDV's been impacted, and we're then comfortable if that still makes a profit and has margin, we'll deliver that deal. So that's our stress test model. And then last but not least is for us to be able to partner with investors, we need to analyze at the outset that we believe that the project has a annualized rate of return that is attractive for our investor partners. We know roughly what our investor partners expect as a return on cap to go into these types of risk profile projects. And there's no point in us doing a deal that hits all of our markers and metrics, but it's only going to return 8% on second charge investors' equity if the project goes as planned, because I don't think people will be willing to take that risk. And, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a complicated development. If you're obviously buying an income play or an asset management play, or that's the process for the first year and then there's value add, that's a different story. So we also like to analyze the indefinite rate of return or the annualized rate of return ourselves to be sure that we think we can get it funded and we're comfortable then going to the investment market.
Thanks once again for watching our video.
We hope you found it useful. If we could ask you for one thing, please do subscribe. It does help us. And check out our channel because there's tons of videos on there with lots of value, which we give away for free. Thanks for watching.